One of the very first things that I saw when I first got to the CIA, well, not saw, I overheard. I overheard two psychiatrists from the CIA's Office of Medical Services, OMS, talking about how to push an employee over the edge because the guy just would not resign. And so a decision was made to make him crazy or to make him go crazy. And so they were discussing in the cafeteria, no less, how to push this guy over the edge so that he would either resign, have to go on a mental leave, or commit suicide.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Future News Network. Today we're going to look at Tucker Carlson talking to John Kiriakou. Tucker Carlson, John Kiriakou. Have a great conversation about the CIA and all of the different types of deceptions and the issues with the agency. A little bit about the life living in the CIA and how it goes for them, which is very different than the average life, I could say. Make 2 videos a day, guys. If you like them, please hit them with a like and subscribe, and we're going to check it out.
Well, the CIA has a well-earned reputation for dishonesty. Of course, the agency lies for a living. That's what they do. So why would you listen to former CIA officers to hear the truth? Well, you wouldn't, except if the CIA officer in question had gone to prison for telling the truth. People willing to suffer for telling the truth are the ones you listen to. And no CIA officer in recent memory has spent more time in prison for telling the truth than John Kiriakou, our friend. Well, he has written a brand new book on what he learned serving for so long as an operations officer at CIA, and it's called The Ultimate Guide to CIA Skills, Tactics, and Techniques. And it's a fascinating read. We are proud to be selling it right now on TuckerCarlsonBooks.com. Here is part of our conversation with John Kiriakou. John, thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations on the book, which is absolutely awesome. I'm looking at a copy right now. So I could ask you a million questions. I'm just going to ask you one, and it's about deception. So the business, to some extent, of intelligence is deception. It's being deceptive, but it's also detecting deception in others, which is a really important skill, I think. How have you been trained to tell when other people are lying?
Well, there are a couple of different levels of training. For those of us who are just going out into the field as operations officers or case officers, you're given some basic training in how to read body language. You know, when you ask someone a question and he looks up, for example, into the air as if he's trying to picture what it is that you're asking, that's usually okay. If he looks down, for example, that's supposed to be alerting to you that perhaps he's coming up with a lie. And sometimes I catch myself doing things like that. I actually do tend to look up into the air as if I'm, working out a formula or something. But then
wait, can I just ask you to pause? So if someone looks up, he's likely telling the truth. If he looks down, he's likely lying.
I don't know if that's completely true. What do you guys think? You think that's true? When I look up, I'm usually pondering, wondering, thinking. If I look down, I'm usually plotting. Oh, plotting. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know how much you could read into that. What do you think? You guys think so? Let me know in the comments.
Crazy, right?
No, it's interesting.
It's one of these odd telegraphed behaviors that are just built into us. Unless somebody is suffering from, let's say, autism, you have to watch the eyes, because the eyes, if a person averts his eyes,
the eyes, Chico, they never lie,
unnecessarily or regularly looking away constantly, that's usually a sign of deception as well. Now, if you're going into the office of security, you're going to be a polygrapher, you're going to be an investigator, something like that. You get all kinds of training that lasts the better part of a year in how to detect deception. And if I could, Tucker, I wanted to add one thing. One of the ongoing problems at the CIA is that you're trained to lie all the time.
Yes.
You're living a lie in most cases, but a lot of guys just can't turn it off. So I had this boss who who acknowledged to me one time as a junior officer that we all lie. We're trained to lie. You lie every day, all day. But some guys don't know how to turn it off or when to turn it off. One of the things that this boss told me was, I want you to lie all day. That's the nature of the job. But don't ever lie to security, finance, or medical, because they're the ones who can ruin your life or send you to prison. And I also don't want you ever to lie to me.
I mean, if you're living a life of a lie, that's what it's going to do. I mean, they stack the compounds. I mean, so many truths are stacked upon truth. So that's how you find deeper truths. If you're living in a lie, the lies get deeper and deeper and deeper, and lies and lies and lies and lies. You don't really want to live in a lie scenario.
And that always stuck in my mind that yes, we lie all day long in that job. And when you're serving overseas, your job is to break the laws of that country, which of course involves lying. But you really do have to turn it off. And then, it's no wonder that so many people at the CIA are married 3, 4, 5 times.
Well, there's also confidentiality as well. You cannot say what you're doing at work to your wife, so when she asks and you don't tell her, you say something else. Is that a lie? Or is it a lie by omission? I mean, could be.
Exactly. I was just thinking that exact thing. I mean, how easy is it to turn off if you're living undercover during the day? It's a pretty short step to having a mistress, no?
Oh my gosh, yes. I worked for a deputy director, Tucker, who had been married 5 times, and every single one of his 5 wives had begun as his secretary. And this is a guy who made it right up to the top. But
well, that's what they say. They say your chances of finding your wife are at work. Most people meet their wives and their husbands in their professions. Actually, you spend the most time there. That makes perfect sense.
Couldn't turn it off. You lie to people all day long, and then you go home and you lie to your wife.
So when that guy, your supervisor who married 5 of his secretaries, when he advertised for a new executive assistant, did they know that a marriage was part of the deal?
Here's how sick the culture can be sometimes, because the answer is yes, they knew, but they also saw this as a way to get ahead. There was one woman
they could use it to blackmail him as well.
Particular, and I'm sorry to get a little, far afield. There was one woman in particular who was a member of the Senior Intelligence Service, which is a very big deal. You belong when you get promoted above GS-15 and you enter the Senior Intelligence Service, you belong to the entire intelligence community. So you can go to the White House, you can go to state, you can go to DOD, all over the place. She had begun as his secretary, and as soon as she married him, she began getting promoted. And then as part of the deal that she struck with him so he could marry the new secretary, she was promoted into the Senior Intelligence Service.
There's always in-grouping in every profession, especially once we have integrated workforces as we do now. People's personal lives get mixed with work.
Well, I mean, from a theological, religious, human point of view, that's all pretty evil. I mean, right. So it's on rotten. A basic level, it's rotten. Exactly. That's got to affect the behavior of the entire organization after a while.
Oh my gosh, yes. I can't tell you how many times, starting around the GS-13 level, people would complain to me quietly, sotto voce, that they had been passed over for promotion, not because they hadn't met all the criteria for being promoted, but because they weren't sleeping with one of the people on the promotion.
That's absolutely awful, isn't it? Have you ever been in that situation? That's terrible.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
We used to have this joke at the CIA, Tucker, that when you go into a conference room for a briefing, never touch the table because you don't know who was having sex on it last night.
So basically the CIA is just like Hollywood with guns. With same moral structure.
That's a really great way to say it. Hollywood with guns. I'll tell you what
It's quite shameful, isn't it? When you think of the people who are supposed to be really safeguarding the men in black, the people that are supposed to be safeguarding. I mean, obviously, you have kind of a playboy, bachelor-esque life because you have such a amazing job, which maybe you should indulge more. I mean, you're James Bond, you're Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, you're an agent, you're a secret agent. The women love you, the men fear you. I mean, I understand having the intensity of that profession, but it should still be a profession and professional.
Did. And this is how I chose to live my life from the beginning of my career. My first wife was a ballet teacher. She had nothing whatsoever to do with the CIA. And so I would spend the day, guns drawn, bulletproof vests, making high threat pitches. And I would go home and she'd say, "How was your day?" And I'd say, "Great. What'd you do?" "Nothing." "See anybody?" "Nope."
Exactly.
And why lie? That is a lie, but why go into the whole thing about, listen, the meeting that I have tonight, it's going to be an important meeting, so I'm going to have to be out all night long. Come on. That's ridiculous.
Well, as Stevie Nicks said, "Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies." I bet your wife doesn't want to know all the gritty details. Most of the time, they don't. When a woman asks you, like, "How was your day?" you can't just unload your whole day on her. I mean, that's have a little stoicism.
Ridiculous. That you have to be honest about.
It's interesting if you take 3 steps back that you're describing a culture that is based on lying, that abets lying, that really is just itself a lie, and you thrived in that culture. It was when you told the truth that they sent you to prison. I assume that's occurred to you.
Yes, it has. And it actually stings, to tell you the truth, because you and I have had this conversation a number of times. I devoted my life to the CIA. I got divorced because of the CIA, because I chose that life over my ex-wife wanted me to move back to Ohio and sell insurance with her cousin. And I said,
It might be one of those jobs where you take, like priests don't get married. They don't have children. I understand that's under the divine light of God, but to do a job of this importance, sometimes those roles should not be tied down. Those men should not be tied down in those ways, and it can corrupt them in a lot of ways.
would rather cut my throat than move to Ohio and sell insurance with your cousin. So, I chose the CIA over my first wife. I believed that, this was God's work. I was working hard to keep the country safe and to protect Americans and to disrupt terrorist attacks and infiltrate terrorist groups. And, at the end of the day, I realized that it was really every man for himself and everybody was lying.
And not just lying, but actively punishing those who decide not to lie. I mean, that's kind of the crux of it. It's like, it's one thing to, tell transactional lies because you think you're serving a greater good, but to hunt down and imprison truth tellers is active evil. I mean, there's a difference, I think.
It really is. And it's not just me. This happens every couple of years at the CIA. There was a very brave operations officer named Jeffrey Sterling, for example. And Jeffrey just happened to be African American, but he had a law degree from a terrific school and he spoke fluent Farsi, went through all of the training, certified.
Farsi? No idea what Farsi is. Was that farce? Is that telling a farce? Is that lying? Speaking fluent Farsi?
At or near the top of his class and everything. And they assigned him to a station in the Middle East. And then after all of his household effects were shipped out, they said, "Oh, listen, Jeffrey, we decided not to send you to the Middle East. We're going to send you to Europe instead." And he said, "Why? All my stuff is gone." And they said, "Well, we were thinking it would just look weird for a big black guy to be speaking Farsi." And Jeffrey said, "When did you realize I was black?" So he filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against the agency. If you're working on Iran and you speak Farsi and you're not allowed to be assigned to the to the Middle East because you happen to be black.
Well, it might be that in the Middle East, they have a different level of respect for black people than they would white people. I'm not entirely sure about that, but different ethnic groups treat different ethnic groups differently. I mean, I don't know if that's a racial. It's not racist to say that in the Middle East they might treat a white guy different than they would a black guy.
Well, that's a violation of the law. And so he filed this lawsuit. James Risen at the New York Times wrote about the lawsuit, and Jeffrey and Risen would speak occasionally about the lawsuit. Interestingly enough, they had 50 calls over the course of a year. None of the calls was longer than 2 minutes. And so later on, Risen came out with a book called Bush at War. And there was a chapter in there about a failed operation to disrupt the Iranian nuclear program. Immediately, they arrested Jeffrey, and they charged him with 9 felonies, including 7 counts of espionage. They said he was speaking to Risen 50 times over the course of a year. The entire case was based on metadata. That's it. No witnesses, no recordings, no proof, no nothing. Even the judge, a hanging judge, my judge, Leonie Brinkema in the Eastern District of Virginia, Jeffrey was convicted on all counts, and she gave him 3 years. On 7 counts of espionage, 3 years, because even the judge didn't believe he had done anything wrong.
Well, that's good, at least. I mean, it might have been a situation that's like, I can't just let this guy go, but I'm not going to punish him to the full extent that he can. Espionage used to be a death sentence.
The CIA does this to its truth tellers. It destroys them.
When you really think of all the ways that they could, and all the access they have from you to destroy you, it's absolutely terrifying. It's revolting.
Ask you, this is far exceeding the time limit, but I can't resist, and editors can take this out if they want. I know someone who serves in CIA currently who told me.
Yeah, we know, Tucker. We know you have. Didn't your dad work for the CIA? Come on. I know someone. You know tons of them.
Recently that a coworker had killed himself. And this person, which I don't think is that uncommon, and
it's not.
This
unfortunately,
person suggested that the coworker got sideways with the agency, and the agency used his psychological profile, which they were obviously familiar with, to drive him to suicide. Do you think that that's plausible?
Yes, I do. One of the very first things that I saw when I first got to the CIA, I overheard 2 psychiatrists from the CIA's Office of Medical Services, OMS, talking about how to push an employee over the edge because the guy just would not resign. And so a decision was made to make him crazy or to make him go crazy.
There's a history of this. I mean, you look at the MK Ultra, all the experiments that they did, they tend to do it more in other foreign nations so that they don't get much pushback against themselves. They'll go over and do experiments, psychological experiments in tons of nations. You go down South America, they've been doing them for years. They did them in Afghanistan. They did them in all different places across the world, and they do them here more subtly.
And so they were discussing in the cafeteria, no less, how to push this guy over the edge so that he would either resign, have to go on a mental leave, or commit suicide.
Yeah, and that is the latter. That's the steps right there.
It's awful.
And these are licensed physicians talking about this?
We used to call a lot of them Dr. Mengele.
Yeah, for good reason.
Mm-hmm. We did.
I mean, has there been no effort for the AMA to revoke their medical licenses?
Well, see, everything's classified. And so you couldn't report it if you wanted to.
It's kind of the perfect system. So you set up this impenetrable barrier enforceable by prison terms of secrecy around you. And it's like, you can do whatever you want. No one's allowed to know. Anyone who talks about what you're doing goes to prison. Where's the oversight? Like, you can do anything.
That's a beef that I have. I feel very strongly about that. The Congressional Oversight Committees, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence were created exactly for that purpose, to provide true oversight. Our elected officials should have oversight.
He who saves his country commits no crimes. I mean, that's basically the argument there, is that there's certain things that the American public can't know, and there's certain decisions that they have to make to protect the sovereignty of the nation. I don't believe that most of these things fall under that category, so the Oversight Committee is very much needed, but you got to believe that there's some things that they've had to do in the past that, if we knew, would drive us to revolt or drive us to something of that standard that they could not let out. I do understand why there's secrecy in these agencies.
Over all aspects of government, yet they don't. They act really just as cheerleaders. And we see it with the Armed Services Committee, and to maybe a slightly lesser extent with the Foreign Affairs or Foreign Relations Committees. But the intelligence committees, forget it. They're just cheerleaders.
Almost every single member of those committees, I know a bunch of them, has a dark personal life. And so it's impossible when Tom Cotton runs the Senate Intel Committee not to think like, maybe there's right? Maybe these are people who are utterly controlled by the people they're supposed
Tucker,
to be.
I'll tell you something funny. A sitting senator, a committee chairman, called me a few weeks ago and asked if I would come up for a private meeting. I said, of course. I'm a patriot. I want to serve my country. And if a senator needs my help, I run to Capitol Hill. And he told me that he was in a dispute with Tom Cotton. And I said, why don't you go to Leader Thune? And he said, I went to Thune. And Thune said he didn't want to get in the middle of a fight between two committee chairmen. I said, well, what the heck do you want me to do about it? I mean, seriously, who am I? I'm nobody. And he said, well, I was kind of hoping maybe you could write something, maybe for the Post or the Times, calling him out. I said, why don't you write something for the Post or the Times calling him out?
Right.
It's all recess. It's all high school all over again. It never really goes away.
I've had enough trouble in my life. You want me to take on the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee? No, thank you. I've done that.
Was he afraid, do you think, the senator?
Yes, yeah. I do.
Of course.
I do.
The only reason we know that a lot of this stuff is real is because of you. And so I'm just so grateful. Because of you, the truth cannot be dismissed automatically as a conspiracy theory. So that is a huge contribution to mankind. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Kirikou.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
You might be one of those guys that they let out and they put out so that they can slowly pepper out the information about the CIA and their wrongdoings without having to blow the whole thing out of the water. You know, like if you don't think they use controlled opposition or controlled people so that they can, what's the word? Breadcrumb the real truth out, so that it's not so shocking when we get the big stories. They do that. They absolutely do that. I don't know if John Kirikou is one of those people. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Let me know. That's the episode. I will see you in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe.